Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
It all started when I got a message on TikTok from an actor named Nathaniel Buzolic, aka Nate Buzz. He's most well known for his roles in Vampire Diaries.
Hey, easy on the hand.
And Hacksaw Ridge.
There's a war, and they need men. And working in a paper mill ain't gonna save this country.
When Nate got his breakthrough role in Vampire Diaries, he thought it would finally give him fulfillment. It didn't. Searching for truth, he stepped into a church and found the meaning of life was not fame and fortune, but knowing Jesus as his Savior.
I wasn't always a Christian, obviously. I became a Christian actually when I first started working on the Vampire Diaries.
Anyway, so I got this message, right? He was asking me if I wanted to go to Israel with him and an amazing group of Christian influencers. I was so excited to be able to go to Israel again and honored to go with him in this group. It seemed too good to be true. And then I got a message from Nate advertising wigs. My heart was broken. Nate had been hacked. Was this whole thing about Israel even real? And so I asked Nate if he could FaceTime me and could verify the details of this trip. If it was hackers, they certainly wouldn't want to FaceTime me. Nate actually said yes, that he would. During my stay at a Christian camp, I was the guest speaker that week. I got the FaceTime call from Nate. This was all for real, and the journey was about to begin. The trip was in November of 2022. Not only would I get to meet Nate in person, but an amazing group of Christian content creators as well. Craig and Jessica Brown. Craig is currently a pastor in Texas and the creator of Bible Time. Vic Vela is a content creator and musician, also in Texas. Isaac David is a content creator and YouTuber from Canada. And Bobby Chandler is a content creator and pastor from North Carolina. I would develop lifelong friendships with these amazing people in the coming days. And I was so honored and humbled to be a part of this group. I was really beginning to feel imposter syndrome, big time. And so I've been holding on to a lot of this never-before-seen footage from our Israel trip that I wanted to share with you in kind of like a vlog style. To keep it from getting too long, I'm planning on splitting all of this up into a series of parts. And so if you enjoy this video, give it a like and a subscribe. Let me know in the comments. And if y'all like this one, I'll continue to post more parts of this Israel vlog. Now, as we pick it up, I'm in Newark, New Jersey, getting ready to board the plane for Israel trip number 5.
So I've been to Israel 4 times, and each of those times was with a ministry that I served with, and all of the trip was pretty much fully paid for. After leaving that ministry to pursue full-time digital evangelism, I didn't think that I'd ever be able to go back to Israel, let alone be able to go free of charge. And I just want to publicly thank Nate Buzz for putting this whole thing together, and also the Maccabee Task Force for funding it. And we're just so excited to be able to do this, and I'm honored to be a part of this group. Getting ready to board a plane to Tel Aviv, and I never thought that I'd be able to go again. It just shows you how God works. So after a 10-hour flight, I finally made it to the land of Israel. I'm so excited to share this journey with you. I'm staying in the hotel in Tel Aviv right now, waiting to meet up with the rest of the guys. This is going to be such an awesome time, and I'm so excited to share it with you.
We made it. This is the crew. This is the crew. Everybody. Look at this food.
I'm hanging out with Dan right now. We're actually in Tel Aviv, the old city called Joppa. This is a place where Jonah fled from the call of God. It's also the place where Peter came to raise someone from the dead. And you'll notice that Peter did something quite incredible. He copied exactly what Jesus did with the young girl. He got everybody to leave the room. He asked the young girl to rise up, and she did. And that's exactly what Peter did. Peter follows instructions well, sometimes.
I'm here in Joppa, on the Mediterranean coast of Israel. This is the area that Jonah ran to when he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord. He boarded a boat here in Joppa and headed to Tarshish to flee from the presence of God. God had told him to do something, to preach to the city of Nineveh, to tell them to repent of their sins or else God would destroy them. Nineveh was the enemies of Israel. Jonah didn't want to preach to them repentance, and so he left and he ran from what God wanted him to do. Are you running from something that God wants you to do? The Bible says that it's God's will for all people to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. Maybe God is calling you into full-time ministry. Maybe God's just calling you to share the gospel with somebody near to you. Or maybe He's convicting you that you need to be saved. Don't run from God's calling in your life.
What's going on?
Here with Isaac David
Yeah.
on the road to Emmaus.
Oh man, this is going to be exciting.
It's been awesome.
I love the story of Emmaus. It's so, just encapsulates the gospel so well, and the Old Testament prophecies that are fulfilled in Jesus, and just how he testifies to that. I love it.
Amen.
I should tell them that you guys are like famous and they're famous Christians, and they'll be like, okay. Although honestly, I'll tell you the truth is like I don't think they really care that much about publicity. Like let's be really honest here. It's a church. They don't need any like.
Have we been pressing this?
We tried and we got that number.
Oh yeah?
There's no mountains. Running there is great. If any of you guys wake up early and go for a run, it's wonderful. It's a little hot, but it's perfect. The farther east that you go, so we have west, east, north, south, you're gonna start hitting these hilly chalk mounds. We're right at the brink of that right over here, okay? These hilly chalk mounds are called in Hebrew the Shvela, okay? You wanna learn some Hebrew? Shvela. Shvela. Talk about why it's called Emmaus. Originally, Emmaus was victory. Let's go into the main chapel of the church. It's much larger than the building itself. So if you can imagine, you have 3 different apses. I don't know how I would say that in plural. 3 different apses, and they would be part of one really, really large church. I'll speak about that. But if I'm talking about Joshua in this area, it's going to be after a pretty frustrating situation for Joshua. He comes in to the land. He's having a couple of battles, and there are a group of people called the Givonim, right? I don't know how that would be in English. The Gibeonites, maybe, right? They're going to come to Joshua pretending to be foreigners. Why? Because Joshua's not allowed to make any sort of covenant with any of the natives. You either are with us, you're against us, that's it. There's no he's not supposed to protect anyone here. This is a battle for the land. And they're gonna dress up like foreigners and say, we're not even from here. We're from, Egypt. Look, our clothes are battered. Our everything's empty, right? Make a pact with us, and he does. And later he's gonna have to act on that pact. And what's gonna happen? One of the first and most famous battles of Joshua, if I open to Joshua 10. So passage 6, it says, the people of Gibeon, they're going to send, people of Gibeon are going to send to Joshua to Gilgal, saying, you have to help us. I'm paraphrasing, skipping ahead though. He comes, he brings all the people in one night. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, right? And what happens? They start battling. Where are they battling? One second, I want to find the right passage exactly. Okay, passage 11. And when they're being chased by the people of Israel on the outskirts of Beit Horon. Beit Horon is literally right beyond these trees, that's where it is. They're being chased right over there. One second. God sends massive boulders from the sky to Azekah. Okay, I want you to remember the name Azekah because we're going to be there. To Azekah. So from Beit Horon, which is right over here, Azekah is going to be south. We're going to be driving there right now. And many people are killed. And then, Az yidaber Yoshua LaHashem, passage 12. Then Joshua says to God, on this day, give the Amorites in the hands of the people of Israel. And God says, let the sun stand on Giv'on and the moon stand in Emek Ayalon. What does that mean? What is he even referring to? First of all, welcome to Emek Ayalon. You guys are standing in Emek Ayalon. This whole big valley of Ayalon is these trees. I mean, you probably saw it when you turned in. It's a massive valley. It's one of the most important. It's exactly the meeting space where the valley ends and we start getting into the lowland hills. And what does it mean that the sun is going to stand in Ayalon, stand in Giv'on, and the moon in Ayalon? Joshua is coming from the east, the hills. The sun also rises from the east. He's fighting the people who are coming from the west. What's the worst thing you can have when you're battling? Sun in your eyes. I don't know if any of you guys have ever driven right in that morning sun and it blinds you and you really can't see anything. That's when accidents happen. He's saying, hold the sun here and hold the moon there because his vision is going to be better and it's going to stay like that all throughout the battle. And it says, and there was never a miracle like this before or after, that the celestial bodies literally stop for the people of Israel. And that happens here. So that happens here. Joshua's going to be here. After that, we have the map. This is going to be a spot that's going to be a massive city because of its location. It's going to be the turning point of directions, right? Later, during the Byzantine Empire, the Romans are going to come. They're going to put the 5th Legion that's going to sit here and then go to Jerusalem to destroy it, the Macedonian Legion. And they're going to erase the name Hamat. It's going to be turned into Emmaus. And later into Nicopolis, which means city of victory, because this is going to be the last one of the last places where the Jewish rebels and the revolt against the Romans are going to be totally destroyed. And then after that, I guess to this day, what holds this is the Byzantine tradition that this is the place where after Jesus comes back, he's going to meet his disciples here on the way. And that tradition to this day is actually still held here. I'm going to pass that on to you to talk about that. Go for it.
Just off the back of what
Do you want this?
Franny was talking about. No, I got one as well.
Oh, okay, cool.
Off the back of what Franny was talking about, we talk about Joshua having a successful campaign at war here. In 1967, there was something known as the 6-Day War, and this city was actually leveled. It was an Arab city in 1967. It was leveled. And what's interesting about that is the nations around Israel all joined together to try and destroy the people that had finally gained their independence. And the battle they call it the 6-Day War because it only lasted 6 days. So every nation around Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Jordan, they all joined forces to say, let's destroy this newly formed nation. Let's remove them from this land. And they lost that battle in 6 days. This specific location was leveled in that war. But
very harsh battle too.
Very harsh.
About 6-7 times to conquer it. Really bad.
Right. But just think about from a theological point of view, 6-day battle. What does God do on the 7th day? He rests. And so the modern Israelite, the modern native to this land, who was once again at battle with their enemies, was victorious in a battle against so many more nations. They were outnumbered. If anyone looked at this on paper and said, this is it, this is the end for Israel, and yet in 6 days they won that battle. And I think from a biblical point of view, God is making a very powerful statement to the nations of this world. I rest on the 7th day. This is my nation. This is where they belong.
this is where they're going to remain. And I think for the Jewish people, it was just a simple reminder that the battle wasn't won by them, it was won by the sovereignty of God, saying that you will not take away my people from my land when I have ordained them to return to this place, gather them from the nations, and here they are. No matter how many of you are, no matter how confident you are, I will always remind you that I am the God of creation and my will always see it through. So that's just off the back of Franny's...
Also the parallel, just thinking about it, there are 5 nations,
Yeah.
5 countries that came up against Israel.
Right.
And Joshua battles the 5 kings of the Amorites. Right? The king of Hebron, the king of Lachish. We're going to go to those areas now, but like there's a nice cool parallel.
5 nations, 5 kings. The biblical narrative continues to this day.
I'm here in Israel, and I want to show you this really cool tree. It's called shezaf in Hebrew, and it's commonly believed to be the actual tree, the type of tree that Jesus' crown of thorns was actually made from. And if you look closely, you can see that there's thorns all over it. Some of these thorns are straight, and some of them are more curved. But this is also usually, I'm told, much more severe in the thorns that show up on this tree. When it's in the middle of the desert, the thorns are much longer and harder. Mind blown.
I would say one of the most monumental figures in the Tanakh. And he pretty much brings, I would say that if we want to go to his beginnings, right? Really his real beginning claim to fame is actually, this is the backdrop, right? If we were to make a movie out of it, this is what it would look like. Probably less dirt because, actually maybe not. Probably real manure. His claim to fame, right? He's a shepherd at this point. These are the lands that he's herding in, right? Why? We talked about the Judean lowlands, right? We're in the Judean lowlands now. If we keep going west, we hit the coast. If we keep going east, we hit the mountains. We're a little bit farther up, but just let's say 20 kilometers that way is a mountainous area. That's where he's going to reign. And he's going to come out here. This is the best area for herding, either on this side or on the other side of the mountainous lands towards the desert that you're going to get to later on tonight. But this is the area where he is kind of, wandering around. And he's sent from the hilltop, the hilly sides, to his brothers who are camping here. I want to open up the passages because they speak better than me. And you're going to have to trust my Hebrew. And the Philistines gather their camps for war. And they gather around Socho, Asher Yehuda, which is in Judah. And they camp between Socho, that's the name of the place, and Azekah. You guys remember the name Azekah? We talked about it with the boulders raining from the sky and then being killed from Beit Horon to Azekah, somewhere around here, in a place called Ephes Damim. So where are we? Where's the backdrop? We have to find a place called Socho. We have to find a place called Azekah. And then we'll know between those two things is Ephes Damim. Now there's a bunch of hills. If you're an archaeologist and you're like, I need to find exactly where this battle happened, this epic battle of Goliath versus David, how am I going to figure that out? So thank God there's lots of archaeology. Now it would be like brilliant for someone to say, wow, I wish we could just dig somewhere and figure out and have a sign that says, welcome to Socho, welcome to Azekah. Guess what? We have that here. Almost. Okay. You guys can see this nice hilltop right next to us, and there's a little white path leading up to it, like a white kind of like a rocky path at the top edge of it, the western edge of it, right? This hilltop is one of the most famous hills in this area. Thousands of Israelis are going to storm this small little hill once right before Passover when everything is blooming, because this is a site called the hilltops of the Tulmusim. Tulmusim are lupines. It's a lupine hilltop. If you come here, it's covered in purple flowers and people like to come and take pictures. But as they walk up, they're actually walking on ancient archaeology, and if they would just dust their feet a little bit, they'll see beautiful mosaics of ancient ruins. And those ruins are called Shuyeka. Shuyeka. Okay. Now anyone who has Tanakh and knows a little bit about how language moves, they say, wait a second, Shuyeka is just a different way of pronouncing Socho. If I change, it's all Hebrew, right? But the sh and the s are the same letter. The ch is the same, and the hey at the end is the same. It's written exactly the same. Okay, so we have the name Socho. It's in the right area of the country. We have to look for Azekah. There aren't archaeologists, by the way, that disagree that is Socho. So this is ancient Socho. There's a biblical hilltop up there. There's even like edges of walls, and there's reservoirs. That's Socho. We have to find Azekah. So Azekah is also another hilltop that, do you have a picture?
Yes.
We have the whole valley of Elah, okay? And then we have a hill right over here. If you look straight ahead of us, there's a kind of a bare hilltop with a single tree. You guys see that? It's like there's a couple trees on this side, a couple trees on the north, and there's one single tree in the middle.
Yeah.
You guys see it? Does everybody see it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes? We're looking at it like this. We're standing here, okay? And we're looking straight. Not exactly. There we go. There's a hill. It's a barren hilltop. The last one that we see, that is a place called Azekah. It's called Tel Azekah today. Why? There are ancient ruins there as well, and there are caves in those ancient ruins. And if you go into the caves, those are caves from the time period of the Bar Kokhba battles. The archaeologists find these caves and they go, wow, in fact, this whole area of the Shvela is filled with these caves, these guerrilla warfare caves, the Bar Kokhba revolt, which happens about 7 years after the burning of the temple. They're going up against Hadrian, and they're hiding in these caves, and they're bringing with them writings and correspondences and coins. And when the archaeologists are digging this area, they find writings from Azekah, and even after that, they have stamps from the hills that are like adjacent and a little bit southwards of letters, biblical letters, talking about the destruction of Judah by the Assyrians, and saying that the lights in Azekah can no longer be seen from Lachish, meaning the Assyrians have come and conquered. There's no doubt to any historian, archaeologist, that there is Azekah, and this there is Socho, and we are now at the edge of the Elah Valley. So now, whoa. I hope you remember where everything goes. Happens to me too.
Okay.
So we would be standing now, if we were just standing here as bystanders thousands of years ago, and we'd be looking, right? And we have the Philistine camps right next to us over here. This would be the scary enemy lines, right? Then Socho Azekah, we're between Socho and Azekah. That's this whole area, by the way, perfect area for a battleground. You're not going to battle on the hills. Yeah. The battle is going to happen right in the middle. So we're like the bystanders, the paparazzi, watching the Ish Benaim. He's called, I don't know what Ish Benaim would be called in English, but like
the sons of Israel.
The middleman, Goliath, is called Ish Benaim. He's this large, massive man, right? And he's coming out every single day, probably from this hill, walking down and cursing Israel. And then what happens? He says, choose for me a man. It's interesting, the words in Hebrew. Just choose one. It doesn't, I don't know, honestly, I don't know the English, but he says, choose for me a man. We're talking about passage 8. Choose for me a man, and I'll come at him. It doesn't really matter who you choose. There's literally no one who can defeat me. And honestly, the feelings in the camps of Israel are similar. No one wants to do it. David's kind of the option B. He doesn't even know what's happening. He's a young one. He's not allowed to be in war. And he comes down, actually probably on the route that we're actually gonna take now, from the mountainous areas, and he sees what's happening. He's standing on the side, kind of like we are. And he sees the situation. And he says, I'll do it. Ephes Damim, by the way, is a name. It means no man's land. That would be the translation in Hebrew. This would be, I guess, no man's land. We're between the camps, right? And he comes and he says, I can do it. And they literally look at him like he's crazy. It's insane. You're young. He's a shepherd. He's the youngest of the kids. He's like, okay, he's got his little flute and he says, no, but I've killed a lion and in the name of God, I'm going to win. And they say, fine. Honestly, no one else is doing it. It's a question why they even let him do it. But they do. They let him do it. He has the word of God. He comes in the word of God. And I think what's really beautiful is they start dressing him. They're putting on his Vechgo David Chalbo, passage 39. And they put on his sword above his armor. And and he can't really walk because he's not a man of war. And he says to Shaul, "Lo u'chal lalechet ber ki lo nisiti ve'yisareh minal David." And he says, "I can't go like this. I'm not used to this. I don't use this stuff." And he takes them off. That would be the equivalent of, my husband's in the army. It'd be the equivalent of him being like, "Franny, I'm just gonna go take on Gaza by myself, and I'm just gonna walk in there with nothing." That would be insane. But I think there's a reason. This is like the building up of who David is gonna be. He is going to be an insane warrior. He's going to kill thousands of his enemies. But it's not by his sword. It's not going to be by his sword. He's starting out. The beginnings of David is, it's not going to be by his sword. It's going to be by God. He's going to be the messenger. And he takes off his stuff. He takes a stick. Why does he take a stick? He's not going to use it. He takes a stick. And he chooses 5 stones. This is probably where we go down. You guys want to walk down to the actual valley? Alright, we're walking down to the actual valley. There's not much to see there, it's really just a valley. But this is the whole valley, and there's the Elah stream. Which has lots of different conservatories that come into it. It's a really big stream, but...
So, Franny, geographically, so they can place themselves, Bethlehem is, correct me if I'm wrong, this direction,
that way.
right? So
yes.
David's walking from
That's
this direction.
He's coming from the hills. That one's on the other side of the hills. He's walking from the hill area. He's crossing the mountains that way.
Which direction?
East. And he's coming west. Like I said, all of the battles are going to start with the natives in the east. The foreigners are going to be in the west, and they're going to meet in the middle. This is the space where they're meeting.
So the Philistine stronghold was Gaza, Ashdod. They're making their way from the coast, and they're making their way to the hill country of Judea. And so the Israelite army under Saul is now meeting them in this valley to stop them moving any further.
That's west?
Yes.
But you said that the Israelites were up on that hill.
No, this hill.
Here is Socho. Azekah. They're between Azekah and Socho.
Who is?
The Israelites. Well, let's actually just read the actual passages, right?
David comes from this direction.
The Philistines are camping here between Socho and Azekah. Israel is camping where? In the Elah Valley, opposing them. We're in the Elah Valley. Right now, this is the Elah stream, the actual stream. Like you can tell, this is the lowest place. This is where the water is going to flow. The fact that it's kind of muddy and dirty is because it still sometimes flows, although we're not yet in the flowy season. If you guys come on Tuesday, which you won't because we're going to be in a totally different area, this will actually start kind of flowing. This is where like the Elah Valley comes from, the name comes from. So you have the Plishtim. They're standing on one side. Israel standing in the valley, but on the other side opposing them. And it's all happening between Socho and Azekah. So now we're actually right in the middle. I would say, and if you can see the terrain, once you actually get into the valley, it doesn't look so flat. So David has the ability to kind of come towards, he's walking through this valley, he's going to pick up some stones, he's planning in his head how he's going to attack, because clearly he has a very, very good idea. He's not going to be using any of the typical, war garments and vessels. He's going to take a stick and 5 stones. What is the stick for? It's a slingshot. It's not a slingshot. Okay, so common misconception: the slingshot where you have like this. Yeah. No.
Was it the
slingshot? It's like wrapped in a garment, a cloth.
Yeah.
You swing it around and you let it go. To be precise, that takes a lot of practice, as David probably did when he was trying to ward off animals from attacking his sheep.
Well, yeah, he's a shepherd. So
he's a shepherd. That's what he has. He has his staff, but he takes his stick, and it's interesting because the stick comes back. He walks up to Goliath. Why does he do that? Because he takes these 5 stones, right? He puts them in his back pocket with his slingshot, and he has his stick. What is that automatically going to do to Goliath?
I mean, it's a joke.
It's a joke. Well, it is a joke. What does he say to him?
Taking a spoon to a gunfight.
Yeah, he says, "Vayoma Plishti." If I look at 43, and the Philistine says to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?"
Yeah.
And he curses him out and his God. So he's cursing the God of David. He's cursing the God of the Jewish people here in this place. Again, we're at a crossroads. We're at the meeting point. This is where the battle of who is going to win is going to happen. And David brings his stick maybe to throw him off. Because if he knew, then he has a stick. You really think you're going to beat me with that? Like, come on.
Yeah.
He's already taking his guard down. The only way to win is not through physical strength, through I'm bigger than you, but through the word of God and also a little bit of thinking.
It also kind of just shows the heart of David having a plan walking into this battle, that he had already knew what he was going to do, but it was a surprise to the Philistine.
Yeah.
And being strategic as he was, that he knew that present the stick but throw the stone. You know?
Yeah. So he comes from so he's coming from here. This is the Nachal. When it says the valley, this is it. Valley is not really the word Nachal. Nachal means stream. It's not really a stream, but it's the lowest point in the valley. So he's standing here and he comes and he's approaching the area of Socho, like from the northeast, right? He's coming from there, coming in, and he's going to be coming up to the Philistines. And what is he going to do? He's going to allow this person to curse him, but he's going to say, he says to him, David says to the Philistine in 45, you come with me with sword and with staff and with like a small sword.
Javelin.
Yep. There you go. And I come to you in the name of God, the Lord of hosts, the God of the camps of Israel who you are cursing. And he tells him, this is it. That's happening. This is the backdrop. He pulls out his stone, swings it around. It hits right into his forehead. We all know the kind of picture. And David is victorious. I think that this happening in this area, what's the beauty of being able to stand here? You could read all of these passages and philosophize about them anywhere you want in the world, in any language that you want in the world. But when you realize that we're standing in the Shfela, the lowlands, the meeting point, the place of humility, and you have David, who at that point is the youngest, he's the smallest, he's not necessarily the physical strength. And we're in the area that's not the most magnificent. We're not yet in Jerusalem or Hebron, we're not yet there. We're in kind of like on the way to building the people.
The city of Hebron.
First thing you should notice is the stones, the lower level stones. This was built by Herod 2,000 years ago. The stones here match the stones that also show the western wall, the retaining wall that Herod built. So it's the same style, same stones. And so we see this 2,000-year-old building. This is the location of the tomb of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so we can open up our Bibles, we can talk about the specific events of Abraham buying this land. And so, without a question of a doubt, this is the location, which is really, really cool, because we're going all the way back into the book of Genesis right now, and back into the story of the founding fathers of the nation of Israel, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, just to really think about, like, they were here. They lived here. They called this place home for different periods of time in their life. Isaac would, live here with his father Abraham. Sarah would be buried here. Leah is buried here. And so it's become such a significant place because, you're looking at something that's got so much history and so much important foundational truths as to how this story began with God. Remember, that in Genesis 12, it's the moment where God calls out one person, and he calls out Abraham, and off the back of, the story of the Tower of Babel, of a group of people wanting to make a great name for themselves, God comes and makes a covenant relationship with one man saying, I'm going to make your name great. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to give you a land, a people, and a place. And God ultimately challenges Abraham to get up and go. And he challenges Abraham to leave his father's house, his kinsmen, and the land that he was living in. And I think that's a really, really important reality check that we have to remember, is that when God called Abraham to leave these three major pillars of his life, Abraham was an old man. He wasn't a youth. He wasn't someone looking for a purpose or a journey in life. He was an older man living out the later part of his life. And that's when God said, okay, pick up and leave everything you have. Now, what's interesting, I find, about the story of Abraham is God gave him a commandment to leave his father's house, to leave the land that he was living in, and to leave his kinsmen. Now, Abraham left, but did he follow the exact instructions of God? Who came with Abraham on this journey? Lot. Who's his nephew? Who's from his kinsman, right? From his father's house. So what we find is that Abraham takes Lot with him, and then immediately, as we continue along the story, we find that the herdsmen of Lot and the herdsmen of Abraham now get into conflict, and the two of them have to separate from one another. And Abraham gives Lot the option.
He's stalling for me.
Yeah. Abraham gives them the option of you choose first. Where do you want to choose? And Lot looks at the Jordan Valley and the land and how it's plentiful and fruitful and a great place to dwell, and he chooses that. And Abraham sticks to the sort of deserty sort of hill countries, and then we find that Lot goes off and lives near Sodom and Gomorrah, and then ultimately, we find this place where Lot actually starts to cause a lot of issues for Abraham. One, Abraham's going to have to go and rescue him from kings. He's going to have to save his nephew. After Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot's daughters, who think that the entire world has been destroyed, will sleep with their own father in an effort to continue on the line of people thinking that everything has been destroyed. And we also see how glimpses of what Sodom and Gomorrah was really promoting in those cities now starts to play out in the daughters of Lot. And the two tribes that will come out of the daughters of Lot will actually ultimately become enemies of Israel much later on down the path, generations later, when the Israelites are returning into the land. It'll be the Amalekites and the Moabites. Right? So two people that will be standing against the nation who came from Lot. And it's all because Abraham didn't specifically listen to the clear instructions of God, saying, leave your kinsman, your father's house, and the land that you're in to a place that I'm going to show you. So it's like interesting how we see little decisions that didn't seem to play a big impact in that moment in time actually start to cause a greater consequence much later on. Okay.
Ripple effect.
Tel
Rumeida, or ancient Hebron, Tel Hebron. That's also where the Jewish people who are living in H2, like I was telling you, living up there. That's where he's going to live. That's where the archaeological site is. That is where all the evidence is. There are remnants of a 4,500-year-old city with giant walls that would match when we hear about the spies who are coming into the land and they're saying, whoa, how are we supposed to take this land? There's like massive people living here. What are we gonna do? And they speak negatively about God's promise of the land. They're afraid. That makes sense, right? Because physically, how on earth, it's the same, it's that later on their descendant, David, is gonna have to face the same giant, right? It's not a physical battle, and they see that and they get scared. That's all up there. There's a lot of it up there. It's beautiful. We can't see today. It's actually closed today. It's on Thursdays. It's open. There are certain parts of it that are open, but it's not where it's going up right now. We also don't have tons of time. But that's Hebron. What exists down here? Nothing. These are fields. And I'll go back in the shade so I can continue talking about it. There are fields, and Abraham is doing his walking. He's getting the constant promise. I'm going to give the land to your descendants. All of it, north, south, east, and west. You're going to be fruitful. You're going to multiply, and this is where you're going to live. When I'm standing here as a mom, and I'll tell you when my firstborn son hit first grade, I cannot tell you how emotionally beautiful it was to come here with all of his 250 little kids in his first grade class, where they came here and had a whole ceremony to receive their first book of Genesis. They're receiving their book about Abraham right in front of it. Wow. It was like, oh my gosh, the generations, right? You look at those huge walls and the stairs and the thing, and above it is a house. And you realize that the prophecies, they're happening today. They're happening now. But so Abraham comes here. What's the first land that he buys, that he owns? That's going to be right here. And if I open up to Genesis 23, Abraham is mourning his wife Sarah, and he's living in Hebron, and he needs to find a good burial for her. Now, nobody buries inside the city. Like I said, this is all outside the city. These are fields, and it says he goes to the Hittites who are living here, and he gets to a man named Ephron, right? Ephron, and in passage 9 it says, "V'itenit me'arat ha'machpelah asher lo, asher b'ktzei sadeh u'bechesef maleh yitnenu li b'tocham לאחוזת קבר." and he will give me the double tomb, or the double, it's not tomb, it's a double cave, the Machpelah cave. That's what Israelis call this. They don't call it the tomb of the patriarchs, the matriarchs. They call it Me'arat HaMachpelah, the double cave. Okay, he's gonna give it to, I want him to give that to me, which is at the edge of his field. I will pay full money, and he'll give it to me for a burial for my wife. And before this passage, you see Abraham, all the Hittites are saying, oh, here's a tomb. Here's a tomb. It's like going shopping for a cemetery in a plot. He says, no, I don't want a tomb that already exists. I want the cave that's at the edge, and I want to buy it. And Ephron says, I'll give it to you for free. And what does Abraham say? No, I'm going to buy it from you. And he weighs out the money, and he buys it. This is the first land acquisition of Abraham. There are 3 places in this country that that it says that you can never come and say it's not yours to the Jewish people. One of them is here, because it was bought. One of them is Temple Mount Moriah, because David buys the threshing floor from Arvana the Jebusite. And one of them is Joseph's tomb. So we're standing here, he buys the tomb. Why does he buy it? Why doesn't he get it for free? What do you guys think?
So he could prove that he owned it.
He says, I'm not interested in a gift. I know that later my descendants, they're gonna come at them and say, you guys don't belong here.
Yeah.
This isn't yours. I'm buying it forever. And he lays his wife to rest. Later, he's gonna be buried here. After that, we're gonna have his son, Isaac is going to be Isaac's going to be buried here. Jacob is going to make his way and actually die in Egypt. And what does he say before he dies? If I open to 49, he gathers everybody around and he says, he commands them, passage 29. And he says to them, I'm going to be gathered into my nations. It means I'm going to die in fancy ancient Hebrew. Bury me with my fathers, and to the cave that is at the edge of the field of Ephron the Hittite. Bring me there, right? Bring us back. I want to go back. And then we're going to have a tomb that's going to have a cave, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebecca, Jacob and Leah. There's one like mama missing, Rachel. She's going to be in Bethlehem. And that's all going to be happening here. How do we know it's here? We're in Hebron for sure. How do we know this is the spot? So first of all, what you're looking at, I think, I don't know, have you haven't been to Jerusalem yet? Has anybody here been to Jerusalem? No. Okay, just you. Does it remind you of anything?
Yeah.
What does it remind you of?
Temple Mount?
The Temple Mount, Western Wall.
Yeah.
That's it. It's the same. These are the stones. When you guys go to the Western Wall and you stand there with all the people and you see the edges of the rock, the framework, the building structure is identical. And the reason is because the man that builds this building over 2,000 years ago is King Herod. And he knows that this spot is the spot. How does he know that? Because it's been passed down from generation to generation. There's never been, we have people even from before then, right? There's never been a doubt. It's been handed out. Why? Abraham, this isn't just about the Jewish story. Who else is buried in here? Why does he specifically want this cave from Ephron? Because the tradition says, this is a Kabbalistic tradition, but I guess Abraham knew the secrets of the Torah as well, that the tomb is also this spot, this cave is the spot of the burial of Adam, the first man, and Eve, and the opening or the gates to the Gan Eden. So he wants to be buried here. It's passed down. Herod builds this. This is the only building that is over 2,000 years old that is exactly the same as it was. It has not been changed. It's been added on to quite a bit. It is the same use, the same space. When we go inside and you see these big like monuments of grave sites, those are the same ones. They're just covered in carpets that were later put on by the Mamluks, right? But this is the same spot. Now you say, Franny, where's the cave? Good question. We're going to go inside and I'm going to talk to you guys about the cave, but it is sitting on a cave. This is a monument. I want you to notice that there's a Jewish man wrapped in a prayer shawl praying right outside the cave. What is he doing there? Why isn't he going in like all of us and praying inside next to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, right? The reason he's praying there is because that is called the seventh step. 1267, the Mamluks are here and they are ruling over the land, and they say, we are absolutely not allowing any Jewish people to come into this site, and Jews are forbidden to go into the site of the matriarchs and patriarchs to connect to our forefathers and foremothers. And what used to be here was there was a big path, like a stairwell that would go right up along the side, and then there was an entrance around the back that still is the entrance for the Muslims today. And they said you were allowed to go up to the 7th step. That's it. Interestingly enough, that there's a crack in that step, and you can even like feel wind coming out. And if you go into that crack, it actually connects exactly to the opening of the graves itself. So there are Jewish people who stick like notes in there, but for 750 years, when they would go up to pray, they were pelted with stones, they were pelted with rocks, they were attacked, they were humiliated, and they kept coming because you cannot disconnect the connection of a father and their children, of the mother and their children. This is the place where that happens. And I will say, it's not just a human story because Adam's here, but this is a Jewish, predominantly Jewish and Muslim site now. Half of it is open for Jews and Christians and anyone who wants to come in. We're going to go to that half. And half of it is closed off entirely. It is only open to Muslims, except for 10 non-sequential days throughout the year where we're allowed in. And that is the hall of Isaac and Rebecca. And that is also happens to be where the opening to the caves are, but I'll talk about that when we get to that doorway, and you can like sneak through and take a little, see if you can like kind of like see what's going on in there. But what we're essentially doing here is we're coming back to the beginnings of the belief, right? Who is Abraham? He's the guy who was on the other side. He's not the popular, he's not the most followed, he has an idea and he is alone with that idea, and that's all it takes is one person to believe it. And he's the one that's going to go off and start all of these three main, I guess, monotheistic religions. He's going to be the one that's going to go with his son from Hebron all the way to Mount Moriah in pure faith that is beyond physical nature, that he'd be willing to do something that obviously we don't believe in, so in the end he doesn't end up sacrificing anything. And when we come here, we're all kind of taking a little bit of a piece of that. So we're going to walk in. And I'll show you around.
I just want to add on what you said.
Yes.
Like we spoke a few days ago that the weekly parsha, the weekly portion of the Torah that we read is about Abraham leaving in his home, living in his father's house, and going into like an unknown land that God is telling him to go to. And it's Abraham was also called Avraham HaIvri, which means the Hebrew. And the Jewish people were called actually Hebrews until they went to the diaspora. And the meaning of Ivri means that it's come from the source Ever, which means like the cross, like across the river or across the other side. So like the whole world was on one side, and Abraham was like on the other side, seeing things differently, and like basically starting the monotheistic religions and all that. So the Hebrews were like the people on the other side. Like when everyone did one thing, they did something else.
It's interesting that Abraham wants to buy the land, right? And he wants to make it a very public event. He goes to the most public place where he would meet with all the people who live in this land. And he wanted to make sure that it was very, very clear that the land had been purchased, that it had been paid for in full, so that no one could ever dispute the true owner of this land moving forward. See, had it been given to him as a gift, then all of a sudden there could have been a debate later on saying, well, hang on a second, like I said you could have it for a little while, but then, now I've changed my mind, I can take it back. But Abraham made sure that it was a public event that everybody would see, that he would say, no, name your price. And even though many people say that the price was exuberant for buying, and also you see how he tries to throw on extra things. Abraham wanted the cave, but he says, take the field as well.
No field, just the cave.
But so what we see is Abraham wanting to make a very, very public gesture, saying, no, I'm paying for this in full, and let it be a witness to everybody who's here that you've asked for the price, you've claimed the price, and I have given you the price of what you've asked for. And so often we think about the reality of what the Son of Man comes to do. I have come to lay my life down as a ransom for many. I'm paying the price for this and making a very public gesture and showing something very publicly that I am paying the price of your debt in full. This is my ownership. Now, why is it so important that we know the place of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Right? If I said to you right now, or if I said to Franny, hey, let's go to the place where King David is buried, right? Now, remembering David was lived 1,000, how many more years? 2,000 years after Abraham's life? 2,000 more years.
Almost 3,000.
Almost 3,000. And if Franny and I said, okay, let's take you to the tomb of David, who we can all agree is one of the most powerful figures in the Jewish story, we don't know where he's buried. We have no idea where King David is buried. We can't find it. We can speculate where it could be. We don't know where the true Valley of the Kings is to this day. People might make claims, it's here, but they don't know where David is buried. And yet, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we can definitively say they're buried here. Now, why that becomes so significant also takes us back to what Jesus was challenging the leadership of his time. And we know the story of the Sadducees, right? The Sadducees didn't believe in the resurrection. The Sadducees were people who wanted to challenge Jesus. And so the Sadducees come to Jesus, and it says the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came and began questioning Yeshua, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies and leaves his wife and has no children, then his brother should take the widow and the father's children for his brother. And then there were 7 brothers, and so he took the first wife, and then he died and left no offspring. And then the second took her and died, and leaving no offspring. And then the third likewise. And then the 7th left no offspring. Last of all, the woman died too. And in the resurrection, then, when they rise up, whose wife will she be? For all 7 had tried to marry her." And so Jesus will respond to them by saying this. He says, "Isn't this the reason you've gone astray? Because you don't understand the scriptures or the power of God. For when they rise up from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels in heaven. But concerning the dead being raised up, haven't you read in the book of Moses about the burning bush? How God said to him, 'I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.' He is not a God of the dead, but a God of the living. You have gone far astray."